Jack and others asked me if I'd be on this panel, since they knew, of course, I would be at ASCD, and I said, sure, I will. So I've done some research. I'm currently from Iowa. Previously, I was from Nebraska. Is there anyone else here from Iowa? Okay, then I have to be kind of careful, because you can tell me if I'm saying it right or not. I know there's some people in here from Nebraska. Nebraska is still one of 11 states that says we won't have charters. Iowa is a state that had very few charters, and you can have a charter that's part of a school district, but Iowa really, it's kind of not been part of what we talked about. And all of a sudden, in the last few months, by golly, we are talking charters, and we are talking vouchers. And so I think what Jim says about maybe it is kind of an orchestrated campaign nationally may be absolutely true. So let me just tell you what I found out in a little bit of research. This is going from there, 1990, 2000, up until last year. This is the growth in the percent of schools, public schools, that are charter schools. Right now we've grown to over 5% of our schools in the country are charter schools. And this is the same chart with numbers. Starting from 1990 to 2000 up till now, we have about 5,000 charter schools in the country at this point. The largest percentage of students attending charter schools last year were in these school districts. New Orleans. I was amazed by this. I suppose it has something to do with Katrina. 61.5% of children that go to school in New Orleans go to charter schools. In the District of Columbia, it's 38%. In Dayton, Ohio, 32%. Southfield, Michigan, about 32%. Kansas City, Missouri, about 32%. Gary, Indiana, 28%. DeSoto, Texas, 28%. St. Louis, about 27%. Detroit, over 25%, and Albany, 24%. Nobody in Iowa has ever done that. We don't have a big percentage of our kids going to charter schools. But obviously, charter schools can get part of the climate and become more and more potent, as shown in these 10 districts. I found some very, very interesting demographic data about charter schools last school year. The percentage of ethnicity-related students in charter schools really compares in some ways to what it is for the general public. And you see it there on the left-hand side, your left-hand side. The most percentage of students in charter schools are white, but it's very closely followed by Black and Hispanic students that come to charter schools. The amazing thing for me, I see a number that jumped there. The amazing thing for me was to notice that in some cases, the ethnicity of kids going to charter schools is very similar to what it is in the state. In other places, it's tremendously different. For instance, in Missouri, 82.5% of the students in charter schools are Black. 16.5% of the students in the state are Black. So that would suggest that in Missouri, a larger percentage of kids going to those schools are Black kids. In California, it's pretty close. 42.2% of kids that go to those schools are Hispanic, compared to 51% in the state. In New York, 64.1% of the students are Black in charter schools, but only 17.5% of students in the whole state. In Utah, it's very similar to what the state average is. 82.8% of kids are white, 78.4% of the total state are white. Same kind of true in Idaho. 90% of kids in charter schools are white. In the state, the white population is about 80%. In Louisiana, about 82% of the kids that go to charter schools are Black, whereas 44% of the kids in the state. So what this is pointing out is that in some schools, the number of kids that go to charter schools absolutely reflects what's going on in the community. In other schools, it's very, very different. There's themes in a study that was done in 2009, National Charter School Research Project, that came up with some themes. I'm going to share about 8 of them. First of all, charter school growth has been consistent since 2005. It'll be very interesting for us to see how charter schools grow during this particular school year, 2010-11, because my guess is it's going to grow pretty dramatically. Charter schools right now are not a mainstream for most families. Charter school growth really remains largely confined to certain states, and I can tell you the top 10 states that have charter schools are California, by far, Florida is second, Texas is third, Michigan, Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Top 10 schools that have top 10 states that have charter schools. Some states, as I said, in Iowa and Nebraska, not our problem. You guys go ahead and worry about charters. We're not going to worry about them. Watch out what's behind you. Charter school growth is largely confined to urban areas. There aren't that many charter schools in rural areas. Charter school closure rates vary substantially among states. Some states rarely or never close a charter school. Now that's important because charter schools were basically developed in an effort to say, let's develop a special school and let's hold them to real high standards. They have to prove that they're making success. But it says that in some cases we're not necessarily following that goal. Charter schools continue to enroll, generally speaking, as I showed you, the same proportion of minority and low-income students as students in nearby districts. Nearly 1/4 of all charter schools are now operated by management systems, either for-profit companies or not-for-profit companies, rather than school districts. As we started, we were going to first talk about charter schools, but it became apparent that vouchers are a very similar inroad into the whole category of public schools. We just, most of us in this room, just had the opportunity to have a conversation with Jean Carter from ASCD about Horace Mann and what we're doing. And Jean was quick to point out that we in public schools can't only blame the people that are coming out and starting charters and vouchers. We have to be aware of the fact that some of the reason that they're starting is because we haven't always been as successful as we need to be. But vouchers are another way that we can kind of get into how do we significantly change public schools. Vouchers tend to split people into two camps. Some people believe very strongly that vouchers are a valuable tool for helping needy children escape failing public schools. Waiting for Superman. Vouchers, on the other hand, some people believe, strip from public schools funding that's necessary to offer help to those children. And yet when they strip that funding from schools, they oftentimes leave our most needy children without help. And if their schools have had their finance limited, then those children are now in schools with less funding than they were before. Some fears about vouchers. We in public education generally believe that vouchers jeopardize the long-standing ideal of offering every child equal access to high-quality public schooling. My main argument with waiting for Superman was not the fact that 5 children are sitting waiting for their number to be drawn, but the fact that if their number is drawn, it only solves the problem for them and for those few kids that are in the school, as opposed to trying to solve the problem for all the children, both those that want to be in special schools and those children that don't even understand that maybe a special school would be helpful. Another fear about vouchers is that it transforms learning from a public good, which Horace Mann believed was important, to a commodity available for purchase. And if you have enough, or if you're lucky enough, you get it. And if you don't have enough, or you're not lucky, you don't get it. It's no longer something that we guarantee for everyone. A final fear about vouchers is that it siphons money from public schools, leaving a large underclass of students trapped in a system without enough resources to meet their needs. So some people think vouchers are the answer, and many people, many of us in this room, believe that vouchers are probably not necessarily the answer that we need. Here I come to vouchers in action, Iowa preschool. Iowa, I'm proud to say, has a preschool program that is very, very good. It's growing. It started small. The previous governor gave some state funds to support it. We have some private funds. And we have all sorts of ways. There's about 7 ways in my particular district that we fund preschool. This year we have 38 preschool classes, most of them full day. We serve about 613 kids in that. And we make a difference. Primarily, we meet the needs of 4-year-olds, but there are some 3-year-olds with very serious needs who come to our preschools. And when they walk into school on kindergarten, the first day of kindergarten, they are different than they would have been without preschool. Current governor had a campaign promise that he would reduce the support for preschool. He would reduce the cost of preschool to taxpayers. And he believed very strongly that people in homes could teach preschool as well as schools. And that the public schools who were trying so desperately to get more state money to provide more preschool were wrong, because there's so many mothers in their living rooms that could do similar things. The current battle is that he proposed a preschool bill that said, and all of a sudden we weren't just talking about reducing support for preschools, we were talking about vouchers for preschools. And I'm like, vouchers? This is Iowa, we don't have vouchers. All of a sudden, preschool in Iowa, if this all goes through, will be by a voucher system. And if you made 300% of poverty for a certain size of family, you can get a voucher. The governor says $3,000, and you can take that voucher and spend it anywhere you want to get preschool for your child. You can spend it in Miss Muffet's living room. You can give it to your Aunt Sally because she has a really good preschool in her dining room, or you can give it to public schools. Public schools are going to be the ones, for 5% of that are going to oversee the program. Public schools are going to be sure that your voucher money goes to the preschool. Trying not to get upset about this. The House of Representatives in Iowa decided they could improve the governor's bill. So what they did is they moved the $3,000 voucher to $2,300. Because if we can do it for $3,000, by golly, we can probably do it for $2,300. So now the House has passed a bill to provide preschool vouchers for $2,300 a year. By the way, if you are Miss Muffet and you have good preschool in your living room, you do not have to have a teacher that's endorsed in teaching. You don't have to have a teacher that has any kind of a credential. He or she should have a bachelor's degree. But if they don't, they should be working on one that they'll get in the next couple of years. Well, you know what? Your $2,300 voucher might work in Miss Muffet's living room, but it isn't going to work in our school district where every single preschool teacher is paid the same as any other teacher, and they're certified not only in teaching but in early childhood education. That $2,300 voucher isn't going to do it. We right now are saying to our public that if the House bill continues as it is, we will have to close probably half of our preschools. We can't afford it. Even if everybody came to us with their $2,300 voucher, we can't hold them open. The Senate, who is supported more by educators, says we're going to stop this because we're just not even going to debate it. And if the House sends it to us and we don't debate it, nothing happens. And if nothing happens, then the old rules still go on. That is, if nobody cuts funding to education in the middle of May. The result is school districts like ours, it's now what, March 25th. We have to do layoff notices by April 15th. And we right now probably have to tell a majority of our preschool teachers, we don't know if we can support you next year. So we have to give you this letter that says you may not have a job. I cannot figure out how our governor or our legislature thinks that's progress, but that's where we are. So we as a district are unable to plan. So this esoteric, theoretical debate that I was part of is all of a sudden real, because in Iowa we're fighting the voucher bills. So I'm going to pass it on to Evelyn. We're going to talk a little about some results of this.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So are the vouchers dependent then on salary, or like household salary? Percentage of household salary?
The vouchers are $2,300. In order to get them, it's related to your income.
And
your
so
income.
if you're below the poverty line, you wouldn't.
No, if you're below the poverty line, you have a chance of getting a voucher.
But if you're
It's only going to buy you Miss Muffet, though.
no, I get that.